So, how many of us had heard of the concept of spoons before? Some of us. How many think it might apply to them? Quite a few of us. How many like the concept of spoons but are still a little disappointed that this isn't my annual anti-consumerism rant? This is probably the first time in 15 years that I have not preached a sermon encouraging us to give experiences or memories or handmade or locally sourced gifts instead of expensive material goods. There are several reasons for this decision. First, disabled and neurodivergent folks are often overlooked or marginalized in our society. Rather than schedule this topic for a service months in the future, thus marginalizing the topic again, I thought to give neurodivergence the attention it deserves. You've heard the word neurodivergent a couple times this morning. A neurodivergent person is defined as one whose neurological development and or state are different from the norm. Its opposite is neurotypical. There are many types of neurodivergence, including autism, Asperger's syndrome, dyslexia, dyscalculia, epilepsy, hyperlexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and Tourette syndrome. There is a fair amount of overlap between neurodivergence, developmental delay, and mental illness. Anyone may have some or all of those things to varying degrees. The language is a little fuzzy, partly because we're still learning about all these conditions, and partly because there's still a stigma about admitting that one has such issues. When Christine Miserandino created spoon theory, there was no easy way to describe what living with disability is like and how it can affect every single thing in a person's life. Now we have this handy metaphor that people can use to quantify their experience, communicate it to others, and perhaps even plan ahead a bit. For example, Reverend Sarah Locke is a campus minister and a seamstress who handicrafts beautiful stoles for other ministers. Last month, Reverend Locke tweeted this thread. "Here's my spoony thread no one asked for. I usually have about 15 spoons. I live with a chronic illness that shows up as fatigue, moodiness, and migraines. But this week I've been real sick on top of this. It took about half my spoons away." Typically, these are the costs of a day. Breakfast, 1 spoon. I don't have to care for our son in the morning because my husband is a superhero, but that would be 3 spoons. Showering, 1 spoon. Doing hair and makeup, 1 spoon. Zoom meetings under an hour, 2 spoons. Driving anywhere, 1 spoon. Going into a store, 1 spoon. Zoom meetings over an hour, 3 spoons. Emails, 1 spoon for every 2 emails. Lunch, 1 spoon. Working on a stole, 3 spoons. Campus ministry prep, 2 spoons. Sermon prep, 3 spoons. Recording things for worship, 2 spoons. Playing with our son in the evening, 2 spoons. Bedtime routine for the kiddo, 1 spoon. Making dinner, 2 spoons. Hobbies, 1 to 3 spoons, depending on what it is. So normally I get to pick activities up to 15 spoons. When I have a migraine, 10 spoons if I'm lucky. When I'm sick, like this last week, 8 spoons on a better day. I was running on a deficit this past week because there was stuff I had to do. That's the end of her thread. Being able to quantify her spoons and the number she's likely to have, depending on her symptoms that day, can help Reverend Locke plan her days and her weeks. It also helps her communicate with her husband, her clients, and her parishioners about her limits. The second reason I'm not preaching an anti-consumerist rant this year, these concepts apply to virtually all of us. It was developed for disabled and neurodivergent folks, and grief and stress affect and limit all of us, especially in a pandemic. Normal folks may have more spoons, but there's still a limit, and that limit is probably much less now than it was a year ago. I fear it's likely to get worse through the winter with more isolation, less sunlight, less time outside, more deaths from COVID and its ripple effects taking resources from people with other conditions, and thus more grief in all of us. Our emotional energy will be taxed. Our executive function may be affected. To the extent we have spoons, we should be planning ahead now for how we will seek support and offer support to others through the winter and early spring. The third reason is that as handy as the unified cutlery theory is, it does have its limitations. I want people to not only use it, but know how to use it well. The spoon metaphor is so flexible and so comprehensive that it can become imprecise. A spoon can be an amount of physical energy, a pain tolerance, a given amount of executive function for focus, concentration, and decision making, a measurement of sensory limits. For some, crowded spaces, bright lights, or loud noises can require more spoons to cope with than planned. It can be a threshold of concern. It takes energy to care what others think, or some combination of all the above. Saying that you have very few spoons left is a good way to communicate you're reaching your limit, and being able to puzzle out which of your limits are running out more quickly can help us understand and communicate our needs even better. Finally, the last reason I did not rant about consumerism, but instead preached about spoons today, my own story. 12 days ago on Tuesday, November 10th, Becky and I checked me into Memorial Epworth short-term mental health facility. I am glad that I checked in and more glad that I checked out. I now feel better than I have in months. I have a new higher dosage for my antidepressant medication, and I am making changes in my personal, domestic, and professional life. I remain committed to ministry in general and to serving this congregation in specific. Let me reiterate that I am not leaving ministry, and as long as y'all will have me, I want to be your minister. That said, I do need to make some changes. Some of them will be smaller, like limiting my social media consumption. Some will be bigger, like resigning from the boards of some local community organizations. I will probably take a little time off in the new year, and I am working with my wife, Becky, the church board, and the committee on ministry to determine what other accommodations and changes we should make together. We'll let you know as soon as we have more concrete plans. I'm immensely grateful for the support that I've received already. I am willing to talk more about this in other venues, but this is enough for today. Suffice it to say, I don't have as many spoons as I did 5 years ago, and I have many, many more spoons than I had a month ago. This Thanksgiving, I am grateful to be sharing my spoons with this congregational community. Happy holidays, everyone. And as Alan sang, we're going to be okay. So may we be.